Welcome back to my channel. My name is Amadat Ayoko Fishola. I hope you guys are doing well. Today I'm going to be sharing a testimony that I have, and it's going to be titled God Saved Me from Bondage of Bisexualism, Waywardness and Fornication. The Bible talks about in 2 Corinthians chapter 5 verse 17 that therefore if any man is in Christ, he is a new creation. The old things are passed away, behold, the new has come. And I'm so grateful because I am in the new right now, and the Lord is doing amazing things in my life. But I need to share certain things about my life, especially because I very much open on here on my page, and also for my own personal deliverance. So it's been like years since this thing happened. I did share another of my testimony of me coming out of idolatry, but this is gonna be just me talking in depth about my life and really what God has actually taken me out of. And I just want to thank the Lord for bringing this to my attention, that I still need to confess about certain things, and to also help somebody out there that might be going through the exact same thing, to come out of the bondage that the enemy has put them in. So I'm gonna start this I guess story, and just so you know, I'm not good at, maybe I'm good at telling stories, I don't know. I guess like you be the one to judge. So I have my notes here, and I'm gonna try to be as detailed as possible. I'm gonna really try. Okay. So at a very young age, when I was like 5-6 years old, I remember that when I mean my family and I, my mom, my dad, and me, and I think my younger sister then wasn't born. I was like 5 or 6 or 4, 5, 6 years old, between 4 to 6 years old. Okay. I think my younger sister was born, but she was still very young. I remember that my mom actually was going somewhere, which usually would be like very busy, either going to some party or like just going to see friends. I just knew that she was very busy back then. I know now I know that she had a shop. She was running a business, but she was always going to parties and things. So I remember that day she had taken me to this boys' quarter. It's basically where guys would usually be at, and these guys were basically unemployed. There were like a ton of them in the room, and I guess like they were there to babysit me. I wasn't quite sure, but I stayed, and the entire time that I was there, they were actually watching pornography, and the pornography that they were actually watching was basically like women. Like, it was, all I know is that what I learned from that was homosexuality. Like, I learned basically like that was actually a thing, like women and women was actually a thing. And so basically I went on to practice that on like my mates and also my cousins. Now that I think about it, it's like I was very, very young back then, and I don't know how, I managed to, carry that out. But I believe that there was a spirit that was actually influencing me, or had possessed me at that time, and I would lean towards the possession part, because this lustful spirit did follow me throughout my teenage life and my young adult life. And also we had moved back then. We were actually living in the family house. My grandpa was a very successful, influential man in the community. He would later become a king, and he had this big, family house where his sons were living, and it was a whole like, family situation there, rivalry, and it was pretty toxic, but at the same time like very bubbly. It was parties, very entertaining, but like there's just a lot going on at home even, that I'm probably not going to share it here, but yeah, just a lot of like things happening, like domestic abuse and domestic violence, right? Anyways, so we had moved out of that house because my dad finally built his own property, like, and we moved to somewhere like very, very isolated from like, everything. I guess like, my mom still wanted to continue her lifestyle, going to parties, Although like my dad had created like a small shop for her in front of the house. She didn't really take much interest in that, but she just wanted to go like into the city, continue the same like, you know, lifestyle. I'm not really regarding her kids, because she actually brought in a guy, someone that she thought that was a friend, to come and babysit us while she was gone. The guy would basically then sexually molest us. It wasn't anything, it wasn't penetration, because we're still very young, my younger sister and I know that she's probably, I don't know if she's gonna see this video anytime, but anyways, yeah, that was something that was happening. I remember one day my mom actually like brought us to the room. Well, she actually brought me into the room. She suspected that the guy was actually doing something to us, I don't know, to me. Maybe she felt that my younger sister was too young enough, she was too young for him to try anything, but it was actually like sexually molesting both of us, right? And while she was gone, like the entire day, my dad would go to work like the entire day, she was gone as well. And it was just basically like the guy and my sister and I. So we're very vulnerable. And so she brought me into the room one day, and then she was literally checking me, like she was checking my, you know, she was just checking me, right? If you know what that means. She was just checking to see if there had been any penetration. And she seemed very relieved when she suspected that there wasn't any. So I don't know, I just kind of, I just thought that she knew, but I didn't really say anything to her. Nothing was actually said, but I knew that something wasn't right here, right? So yeah, I basically was carrying that same, like, nothing was done. It just felt like life continued. My mom later would travel abroad, right? She would travel to Europe to try to, you know, get a better life for us, right? Although in my opinion we're doing fairly okay. My dad was doing okay, but she just thought that there was something better. So she left us finally, you know. It's a whole thing, right? She left us basically still vulnerable, and we're still living at my dad's house. Now, before she left, she brought her 2 children from another man. So that's like my older sister and my older brother. We're like 4 years apart. And also my dad has children outside of outside of his relationship with my mom. Yeah, that's a whole story, and it's pretty interesting too. Anyways, so we're basically like alone in the house, right? Like, he would go to work in the morning, and he'll come back later at night, and we're pretty much alone, very vulnerable. And my older sister, she was very much in her teenage years, still very, like, you know, teenagers, they're very, like, you know, rebellious and stuff, and they're trying to try out different things. Boys would come in, she would just do like crazy things, right? Boys having boyfriends and things, and like people would tell my dad, he would get really upset, you know. So yeah, like, and during that age, like, my sister would actually have like romance novels. So I would, you know, read some. I think like when I was getting older, like, yes, like when I was getting older, I would read those romance novels, and I guess like that was when I actually learned anything about masturbation. And then I was like 15, 16 years old. I remember like I would read the entire novel, because there wasn't really much to do, and it's Nigeria, like there wasn't, if there isn't electricity, like what are you gonna do, right? So yeah, I got bored a lot, so that was basically what I was doing back then, right? Yeah, I remember there was one time that while I was still in my dad's house before we had to go to my grandma's, because there was just a lot of things happening, especially with my older sister. She was getting like, you know, there were a lot of reports of her, like, you know, having this wayward lifestyle, having sex with guys, and just like there was fear about her getting pregnant, and we're girls, so like there was just basically fear that something might happen to us, you know, basically like men, right? So yeah, I remember there was one time when I was still at my dad's place, like there was this neighbor, and my dad is the landlord, so there were tenants, and there was this woman, well, there were a couple. The woman is basically close to my older sister because she's very friendly, and they had like twins, right? And it was a boy and a girl, still very young. We really loved those twins, and they used to come upstairs, like if the mom just wanted to sleep or take a nap or something, like we'll just carry them and carry them upstairs where we lived, and we just kind of like just have them around and just play with them, babysit them. And there was one day, right, that this spirit was basically telling me, like, you know, like you can actually like do whatever that you've been reading in the novels, like, you know, with the child, and just experiment. And I was like looking, you know, just that spirit was trying to push me into doing that, do what was done to me, to the kid, right? I didn't do it. I couldn't do it. I loved the child so much, but I just couldn't do it. And that thing actually just stopped with me, but like I didn't really know how to actually interpret that, to know that there was actually something, like there was a principality in my life that was actually causing me to do things like this, right? There was just a lot of things, like in terms of like, you know, that spirit, that homosexuality spirit, or I don't even know what it was, just a lustful spirit, right? A lustful spirit that was there, that was basically pushing me to do stuff. I'm not gonna go really in depth into that. I wrote everything down, so I think I'm good. I just wanted to share this for somebody out there. So basically, like I moved to Canada when I was like 17. My mom finally figured everything, the papers and everything worked out, right? And that's another story for another day, and still a story that's still on, like progressing. It's still like, you know. But yeah, we came here when I was 17. My sisters and my brother, we came here, and then yeah. The fornication actually, well, I started to, I remember there was one time when I was on my, I didn't tell you let's go back, okay? So when we moved to my grandmother's place, my grandmother's house, it was basically like, you know, it was a whole different experience. You know, we had, you know, chores, we had things we needed to do. You know, it was just a different thing, you know. So basically, and that's another story for another day as well. But you know, I basically got deeper into my lustful desires, and definitely the influence was definitely dominating at this point. I remember I was very good at school in terms of sports. Never really used to study, but I used to pass my grades, okay? So there was this girl, Simbi, I remember. Maybe I shouldn't even mention her name, but let's just call her. Yeah, I've mentioned her name already. I remember that day she, for some reason, came to my house for, I don't know what, but it was just to visit, right? And I didn't know anything about pornography back then. But I just took her phone. She told me to take her phone for a second, and I was just kind of like going through her phone, and I saw pornography saved on her phone. That just clinged to my spirit. Like it literally like took its claws and clung to my spirit, like it was a spirit. I believe that is a spirit, and it just clung to me, you know, and I just couldn't get the tentacles off of me, you know. So I took the phone out, and I kept watching it, like, and I took the phone and I downloaded the things, right, the videos onto my own phone, and that's basically was how the whole thing started. Yeah, it just pretty much got worse from there. It's crazy, very, very crazy. Pornography is crazy. Like it's addictive, and it's just so it rewires you. Like it turns you into something else, like, you know. So I would even like watch, like I would just try to explore and just kind of see. I was very curious, right? I was a very curious kid, so I would just try to see like what else, you know, like is there. I was really after like the feeling, the euphoria, right? And I would like check to see like, okay, is there, and I would watch even gay porn, you know, and I would see, okay, like, you know, that caught my interest. And it was just so crazy. And then and I remember there was one day, like, you know, I was literally at it, and I was like, like I wish that I could finally have sex. I think that was like when I was 15, 16. That was like, it was very interesting, like the state that I was in. It felt like I was very like insatiable. Like you had gone from one stage to another stage, to another stage, to another stage, to another stage. And it's like, it's just progressing. And it's like, when is the point where, you know, you're finally gonna be like, okay, like maybe it's the time to actually like stop. Okay, but if you never put a stop to it, you're just gonna progress, and people actually find themselves raping other people. They find themselves molesting children. They find themselves doing crazy things because they never put a stop to it and don't have any boundary. Because these spirits will keep asking for more, you know. So finally, fast forward to like basically now that I'm in Canada, now I have like pretty much all the freedom. Even though like I was living with my mom, the culture of the Western world quickly hits me, knowing the fact that I'm 17, soon to be 18, like, you know, I can basically do whatever I want. And that's what I did, okay? I got my mom was pressing about me getting a job, and it was just about like, it's a whole thing, like the whole relationship like literally plummeted, and it was just really, you know, I never was there anyways. So there was just like a lot of shock for me. The culture shock was crazy. And even though like I was a Christian, even back in Nigeria, when I was still trying to like get out of the claws of fornication, get out of the claws of lust, I was going to church and trying to find myself again, giving my life to Christ and everything. So when I did come here, it's like, oh, like, you know, I did try, you know. I remember like we were in the room, my brother and my sisters, and I remember like I was, you know, telling them that we should do Holy Communion, you know, alongside with Pastor Chris back then. And we did that one time, and I think after that, like the principality in the Western world is like a whole different thing. Like if you're not a strong Christian, you will find yourself lost, okay? And which was literally what happened to me. But the Lord had greater plans for me, and I'm thanking the Lord because I'm here. So basically, fornication started right after when I was 18 years old. Got on to like online dating. If there's nothing like online dating, like I think like I would probably like not have done anything at all. Seriously. But like basically that the accessibility to like the other gender is literally a great opportunity for a lot of crime, a lot of, you know, mistakes, and just a lot of like foolishness, you know. Easy accessibility, should I say. And yeah, the pandemic that started, right? Having boyfriends and just having sex just like that. And yeah, my mental health was very, very bad. And then the pandemic happened. I was dealing with depression. I was far away from home. Never was really close to family anyways. We're just drifting apart. Everyone is trying to find their find their whatever that they were good at, or they were trying to get into school, or just trying to learn language. It's in Montreal, like we landed at, so they didn't even speak like, you know, English where we're at Montreal North. If we're maybe residing somewhere in downtown where people actually did speak English, like maybe okay, but we're like at Montreal Nord, you know, we're still like, oh, we have to learn the French. Everyone is like literally trying, people were failing, trying. I remember like I applied to Dawson College like multiple times and getting rejections. Like literally had a lot, like it had so you know, it took a toll on me, you know. And all I wanted to do was just like, how can I kind of assimilate myself into the system instead of like integrating, you know. So yeah, I moved to Toronto for university, and then I started to, and I remember like it was in the pandemic. I think it was like my second year. I was very curious. I'd gone to the restaurant, one of my friends, and there was this guy carrying a whole bag of weed, and I'm like, yo, like, I've been wanting to see this. What is this? I've seen it on social media. I don't know what it is. You know, like it seems to be giving someone this kind of like euphoria. It's just like something I've been chasing like almost like my entire life. And it's like, yeah, like, you know, take some. And he gave me like, you know, yeah, the buds. And I'm like, sure, I'm gonna try this. And yeah, I basically, the first time it was like pretty nothing. The second time was like, okay. The second time I actually went ahead to go get like the bong to do it. Like I really was determined that this thing, I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna like get the whatever they're getting out of it, I'm gonna get it too. I mean, like the whole idea about actually you smoking cannabis was like, it was good, you know. Like if you're in the world, like your mindset towards these things is different. Like you're thinking that this thing is medicinal, this is good, there's nothing, it's not going to do anything bad for you, even though you're smoking it and the smoke is getting into your lungs, and you could like it will damage your lungs, and it will damage your breathing, and everything will be affected. Your cardiovascular health will be affected, even your brain functioning will be affected. Like you're like, well, that's okay because of it's healing me, it's medicinal, it's this, it's that. There's just a lot of arguments that are just like pushing you towards that. And it's really true. Like the world will, like, imagine if like there was only like 2 people saying that this is bad, and like 10 billion people are saying that it's actually good for you. You know, if you don't really know who you are, if you don't know the word of the Lord, if you don't know anything, you will fall. Like you will fall, you will do it, okay. And so basically, yeah, I did it, and I got the hype from it, and that was basically how I became, you know, a stoner. So sorry, my battery actually died on me, so I'm gonna continue this on my phone. So yeah, that was basically how I became a stoner. And yeah, it was still in the pandemic, and like I was so like still kind of chasing the next high, you know, like what's next, you know, and like on what was actually trending. Remember, like I was in the world, so like everything just seemed very appealing to me at this point. Like, you know, I didn't really believe in Jesus anymore. At this point, like I just like was like, I was kind of adapting that atheism mindset. Like it's so crazy, like how did I even get here? I remember like shortly before I actually moved to Toronto, there was an incident that did happen. We'd gone for evangelism, and you know, we at Berry Camp, right? And there was a woman that was in a wheelchair, and I knew the woman wasn't disabled, right? I knew she wasn't disabled, but there was a man that was part of the ministers that basically, you know, told the woman to get up, right? And the woman basically got up, and he had, you know, attributed that to being a miracle. But in my mind, I knew that the woman could walk, you know, like she could walk, you know. It was very clear as day, like she could walk. I live in Montreal, like you would see a lot of them, you know, like just sitting on the wheelchair, but they can walk because of, you know, maybe something is wrong with the leg, arthritis, or they just want the check. Maybe they do have something wrong with their legs, but it's not that crazy, or it is crazy, but they can walk, right? And so the person actually made a big deal about that, and I'm like, and I'm coming from the culture of like Christ Embassy, which is the church that I was actually attending back then. Like they would literally put a big deal on like, you know, miracles. Like if you get a miracle, like, you know, Pastor Chris usually would have healing ministry or something like that. And then there'll be like a lot of people coming out of the world for this program, you know, just to get miracles. Some people even say that if they can just touch the hem of his suit, if they can just touch him, like, you know, it was a whole thing. Like, and then I realized like the reason why I actually did fall was because of I was living vicariously through the eyes of Pastor Chris. And second of all, he had a nasty divorce, right? He had a divorce, and I'm just like questioning a lot of things back then. Like, is this even legit? I remember like I was also getting like a lot of attacks myself. Attacks on my identity, being an African in a school that is actually rejecting me. At the same time, like just literally like being very, very like mean to me, you know. But I had to be there because like there were only like how many English colleges in Montreal. Finally had the guts to apply to another university in Toronto when I got in. And so yeah. So yeah, fast forward to basically me smoking cannabis and everything, like just coming to, you know, even before I even moved to Toronto again, like I was actually like, you know, just not caring about, I wasn't caring about like Jesus. Like I had that doubt inside of me, like, like sure, you know, like this poor just freaking lying. Do you know what I mean? Like that's basically how I thought. And so like I was doing whatever I wanted to do, having boyfriends, having sex, and from someone that like actually was very dedicated before. So yeah, moved to Toronto, and then I'm just like, what's the next thing? Like, you know, what's the next high? What's the next thing? Yeah, and then on TikTok back then it was like, you know, bisexualism, like, you know, trying to experiment, like, and just seeing like, you know, am I really bisexual? Trying to like take tests and things like that. It was about like, I feel like the pandemic was about finding yourself in the templates of that the world is kind of like selected for you. So just kind of like trying to see, does this actually fit? Does this certain parts of my personality or my characteristics, does it fit this template? So, and I think a lot of young people are still doing that even now. And so now like I'm a like avid smoker, or should I say stoner, right? And I was getting depressed, mental health issues. And then, you know, I started to develop that interest of like actually trying to see, like, let me see, like, is this actually a thing? Let's actually put it in action. So I went on a dating app, which is like the easiest way to, you know, get someone and just kind of like use and dump, really. And we see that in the dating culture today, like it's so accessible, like, you know, it's really bad. And people are getting damaged because of the internet, you know. So yeah, like I met up with a girl, and yeah, she seems to be like curious as well. They call it bi-curious. But we would turn out to be friends, and then like there was one day we decided to meet up at my place, and then like, you know, finally I'm getting like, you know, doing the whole thing, smoking and getting intoxicated. Finally decided to, you know, try it out. And then that was the only time that I'm like, yeah, like this is not for me, you know, like I just made up my mind, like this is not for me. But then we kind of remained friends for like, you know, a short while after, but then kind of cut it off. Lots of things were just happening. I remember like there was this, I was just like, you know, before I actually like moved to Toronto, like I'll just get, you know, it wasn't more, I feel like, yeah, the feeling or the influence was just like, you know, you see somebody, or let me just describe it as this, like I had this very huge insecurity back then with my with my chest, my breasts. Okay, I really wanted, because of, again, pornography. Okay, I wanted to have this, big boobs. And I remember I was taking pills for it. I was dating my first boyfriend, a white dude. Okay, I don't even know why I said that, but he was white. Okay, and I wanted that big boobs because it was what everyone kind of saw in porn. So it's if you don't have it, probably And I was taking this pill. I don't remember the name, but it's kind of a hormonal pill. I would get it from internet, and I would be taking the pill, even though it could potentially do harm to me than good. But I didn't really care. But I was still taking it anyways. I saw some result, but then it was just crazy because my hormones would just just skyrocket. And so yeah, that was basically, I had huge insecurities. And there was this girl from work. I was working at McDonald's back then. She basically had the big boobs, the typical that, big boobs type thing. And so she had something I was crazy about, right? And so that was basically that. It wasn't much of infatuation or wow, this girl is very, it wasn't more wow, let's get down or something like that. It was not that. It was just women type thing, oh, she has this and that. It wasn't even more envy. It was just more okay, it's kind of should I say, it's what you see in the pornography, right? So that was that. The girl's name from McDonald's that I was that I thought that she was typical, okay, is Alexia, and the one that I met was actually the same name but different pronunciation. So that's when I'm yeah, this is a whole setup, literally a whole setup from the enemy, literally walking in the path of the enemy. That is so freaking crazy, right? And then, yeah, what next? I think basically that basically was that. Yeah, that is basically my testimony. How did I get delivered? It's a whole, if you want to watch that testimony, go down in my video to watch it. But it wasn't something that it was pretty crazy, right? But I got deeper into the next thing, and I went into the occult. I remember I was reading Nietzsche's book on morality, and basically on why morality is not essentially a thing, and why everyone should basically do whatever they want to do, this and that. He made strong arguments using really interesting vocabulary, and the structure of his writing was very, very much trying to suck you into the text, and so you can try to decode it, and yeah, it was just it was very manipulative. So yeah, that was basically that, and yeah, the Lord actually delivered me after going through a lot of attacks from the enemy, because I still knew that there was God out there. I was getting a lot of attacks, especially during the pandemic. But after I gave my life to Christ, it more than doubled. And I feel for me, I'm glad, because I hear a lot of people's testimony, and they say oh my God, it was I heard this girl's testimony, basically said that it was 10 years after she gave her life to Christ, that she started to experience that, spiritual warfare. But I experienced it very early on. I feel now it's okay, you kind of know, exactly what's up, and so you're able to kind of fight and prepare, and yeah, and build your stamina over the years, which is what I did. Now it's kind of yeah, you're kind of building up on that. So yeah, that is basically my story. I just want to add also this sinful lust, it didn't have any boundaries. It will make you do whatever you want to do with anybody or anything, you know, just doesn't have any boundary. Doesn't have any boundary whatsoever. If you're watching pornography, and I know that you know what I'm talking about, the enemy will try to make you to do things that it's like, that's crazy, you know? And it's like, when will you finally put your foot down and say that, you know what? No, you're not gonna have me this time, or I'm not gonna do that this is against my values, you know? Or just say that, you know what, I get out, you know? And you can't keep hurting the people that are close to you, people that genuinely love you, because of this evil spirit that is literally searching to wreck your life. Okay. I remember when I was also young, like my older sister, like we were sleeping in the room in my dad's place, and I remember very well that we're sleeping and this spirit basically would not let me sleep, like, and then basically influenced me to like suck the breast of my older sister. And I'm like, yeah. Another one too was when I was younger, I did a bet with my sister, my younger sister, and I told her that she actually, I can't really remember the details, but it was that if she lost, that she would have to suck on my breast to get some money or something. I don't remember, but I remember very clearly that was basically part of the deal. So it was that scenery, that's whole thing that was basically, you know, you would see that again, like in many parts of, you know, the old journey with the devil, my journey with the devil, of like, you know, iniquity and perversiveness. But yeah, yeah, I think it's so crazy because, oh yeah, I didn't mention the part where like it was that time during the pandemic that a guy actually kind of took advantage of me at college, and because of my wayward lifestyle again. Yeah, that was that too. So there was just like a lot of like, you know, there were roots of hurt, trauma, and I think that the foundation literally set the ground to attract these things into my life, like the same pattern, the same rhythm happening over and over again. And unless you, like, if you're going through the same thing, you know, maybe the programming was kind of set very early on, of like sexual molestation, of like, you know, well, I wouldn't say homosexuality, but like just basically the influence of that. Well, you know, but it is still homosexuality, right? That part was where the pattern to be taken advantage of by men, and to be, yeah, and to not be valued, to be disrespected. If you've been raped before, you know, and this pattern basically is happening over and over again, because I feel like a lot of rape victims will not tell you that they're having patterns and patterns of this recurring in their lives because of what happened to them. But, you know, therapists will basically tell you that this is literally the fact that, you know, I can't really explain why that is, you know, but yeah. If you want to break this pattern, like, Jesus is there for you, right? The enemy will continue to try to strengthen that demonic pattern to continue to happen in your life. And you need to make the decision to actually break that pattern. Okay. In Leviticus 18 verse 22 says, "You shall not lie with a male, as with the female it is an abomination," vice versa. 1 Corinthians 7:2 says, "But because of the temptation to sexual immorality, each man should have his own wife, or each woman her husband." Obviously, we know this is not mandatory, but if you can't control yourself, then you should basically have, like, you know, your spouse. Leviticus 20:13 says, if a man lies with a male as with a woman, both of them have committed an abomination. They shall surely be put to death. Their blood is upon them. So this is an abomination, you know. And it's so crazy because, like, the world literally has accepted this, has normalized this. A lot of people are desensitized to this topic. It's actually encouraged. You're encouraged to come out. You're encouraged to, like, you know, basically you're encouraged, you know, even if you're not, you know, and you're basically being, you know, everyone is like, it's so crazy because, like, the flesh is crazy. And not even just the flesh, like, there's spirits out there that are literally pushing you to doing this, right? So I don't know, man. I just feel like we need to start operating from the spirit. So yeah, this is an abomination. Jude 1:7 says, just as Sodom and Gomorrah and the surrounding cities, which likewise indulged in sexual immorality and pursued unnatural desire, serve as an example by undergoing a punishment of eternal fire. So, you know, if we actually worship the flesh, like, it's gonna lead us towards hell. The flesh is insatiable. You're gonna do something, and then you're gonna do what next are you gonna do? When is it gonna stop? You know, and when are you gonna finally be satisfied? You know, it's never. But Jesus Christ is there to offer something even better. You know, when your flesh is telling you that there's certain things in your ears, or like you're just getting that influence again, or like, you know, the spirit is trying to, you know, force you to do something or tell you to do something, like, just remember that you have power over serpents and scorpions and principalities and powers as well. And also remember that, you know, remember, like, there's something better, you know. Even though you know that you're going to experience that short-term pleasure, which is like temporary and is deceptive, it's a lie, you know, just remember that there's something better. Like, Jesus Christ is offering you something better. Don't be easily satisfied by the bare minimum, which is what the devil is giving you. The devil is giving you the bare minimum, you know. And in Romans chapter 1 verse 26 to 28 says, for this reason God gave them up to dishonorable passions, for their women exchanged unnatural relations for those that are contrary to nature, and the men likewise gave up unnatural relations with women and were consumedly passionate for one another, men committing shameless acts with men and receiving in themselves the due penalty for their error. And since they did not see fit to acknowledge God, God gave them up to a debased mind to do what ought not to be done. So you can see that this is like, they're in some sort of a trance. The reason why, like, the world thinks like it's not a crime, the reason, like, it's like a trance, really, because, like, when I was doing it, when I was in there, you have to understand that if you're a Christian watching this, like, it's legit like a trance. Like, it's like you don't think that what you're doing is bad. Like, you actually, like, genuinely, you think it's a good thing. Like, you think that, you know, you're just exploring yourself. You're thinking that, you know, you think it's okay. Like, it's just like a normal thing, okay? Like, it's like you think it's a normal thing. That's what a debased mind really means. Like, it's a debased mind, you know, like as if you're in a spell. It's pretty strong, you know. So I guess, like, this is an appeal that we ought to pray for the unbelievers. We need to pray for them that their eyes will be open, that the veil in their eyes will come off. And Heavenly Father, I just thank you, Lord, for the grace to be able to do this video today. And I just pray for anyone out there that is still caught up in the sin of sexual immorality, of bisexualism, homosexuality, or of fornication. I pray, Father, Lord, that you will just renew their minds. I pray that you deliver them from any lustful spirit that is trying to take over their lives. I pray, Lord, that you will just wash them clean, oh Lord. I pray, Lord, that you will do amazing things in their lives, oh Lord, and just show them how wonderful it is to actually serve you, oh God. But I bless your name, oh Lord, in Jesus' name. And I pray that you will take away the shame and the guilt from their lives, oh Lord, in Jesus' name. And you will give them the grace to be able to walk in the freedom that you have called us into. In Jesus' mighty name, amen. So guys, thank you so much for watching my video today. Know that your case is not, it's not impossible. I was really deep in pornography back then. If I can get out, you can get out. I was really deep into fornication back then. If I can get out, you can get out. And talk about the soul ties, so talk about, you know, just getting those evil tentacles off of you. It's very, very like, it's hinders your life, your destiny, your progress. It's just so annoying, you know, but you can do better. That's what I have to say today. Thank you so much. I will see you in the next one. Bye. Take care.